And as always, we're going to be looking for accurate context, good risk management, and always exercising good patience.
Everybody who's traded has gone through periods of time where their strategy hasn't worked.
Where if not a hard stop, you should reevaluate the trades you're in based on time.
That's what we're here for, is to put ourselves in the best success. A trading routine does that, builds that habit, lets you know what to work on, what to reflect on, and what to improve on the next day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the extended Top Step cinematic universe for the Coach's Playbook today. And we have a topic that I love. Thank you, Holden, for coming up with this one, which is what I wish I knew the first day that I started trading. So I think we all have thoughts about that. I've been thinking about this all morning. But first, Mick, I hear you give a shout out.
I do. Big shout out to Ambrose Ko. Not sure how to pronounce that last name, Kao, but great job today. Up about 2,500 trading the S&Ps.
Yeah. Well, Ambrose is a cool name. So yeah, good on him. $2,500 too.
Yeah.
So,
sorry for botching the name, by the way, if I did.
It's okay. He is, Ambrose will be good. So we can just start diving into this. Maybe I'll just start with one that came to me right away that I think I really wish I knew. So I started trading when I got a job in trading, basically. And what I wish that I had known as I was doing the interviews and going to the jobs and stuff like that is that it is a career that is constantly full of uncertainty, and you can't plan. I remember coming out of college and thinking, well, I'm going to go into trading, and by the time I'm 30, let me see what the stats say on that I'm going to be making a whole bunch of money a year. It's just going to be a gravy train. When in reality, you have to reinvent yourself all the time in trading. And just because you've gathered the knowledge, you've gotten good at something, you're only as good as sort of your last trade, right? It can all disappear. And at one point, I think in 2015, 2016, that did in fact happen to me where, S word, this isn't working anymore. And it doesn't matter that I've been doing this thing for 5-6 years. I need to kind of go back to square one. So I think you have to be, if you're looking to get into this industry, you have to be okay with the idea of working your butt off for a month and losing money. That's what always killed me. It's like, wow, I could have taken a month of vacation in Bali and I would be better off financially than if I had stayed here 12 hours a day and incinerated this stack of money. So that is what I would say. You have to be cool with that. And if you are not, there are tons of jobs. You could be a lawyer, a welder, a doctor, all sorts of jobs that have a better career trajectory if you just keep on putting in the work. So, Hogue, what about you?
Well, I've thought long and hard about this, and there's a lot of things that I wished I knew the first day of trading. I worked on the trading floor. I didn't just jump into actively trading. So I did have a bit of an education coming into my first day in the trading pit. But I think the one thing that stands out, well, two. First, I wish I didn't know about the money. Everybody's chasing money, and I think that's a real detriment to actually being successful at this.
Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Pardon?
Could you elaborate on that? Are you talking about the money that you make in a year or just the money involved in the trade?
The money that we see people make or have made is what it becomes the goal. And chasing the money is one of the paradoxes in trading. If you're just chasing the money, it's going to just run away from you. So just knowing the kind of money that I was seeing people make, I think was a bit of a detriment to my first day in trading, thinking, okay, here we go. I'm going to make a boatload of money now.
Yeah.
Without considering the process and the other things. And the other thing that really sticks out is I wish I'd understood the auction process and market profile on day one. That's kind of funny because my dad was a board of trade guy. he knew Pete Stottlemyre, who is really kind of one of the creators of the market profile. He told me about market profile when I was in about 8th grade. I didn't care about market profile in 8th grade. I wanted to go skateboarding or something. And he never really brought it up again, even when I went, started trading in the trading pit. It wasn't until a friend of mine kind of reminded me and gave me the Bible, Mind Over Markets. And that really had a major change in my trajectory in trading. I had a better understanding of the auction process, how markets work, and a much easier and better way to locate good trade locations. So it's probably, I would say, number one would be the market profile.
That's a very, I think, salient point to all of this, because once you got into that, then you're focused on the process and trying to make good trades in the market. Versus, I'm in that same boat, Hogue. Many of the most destructive trades that I got myself involved with are when you see someone else who's in your group or that or at the same firm or even outside of it making a ton of money doing something in particular, and then you're like, well, I got to do that too. But you're not focused, you're not doing it because you think it's a good idea, you're doing it because somebody else's good idea made them a bunch of money and you may not know how to do that. So Mick, not calling on you last this time.
Okay, thank you. I
Making a
appreciate
point of
that. I mean, things have been
That
really
makes
good.
me last the last 2 weeks.
I'll do it around. I'm gonna start like having a random generator, so we'll get to you, Dan.
Yeah, it's nice. That was 2022 has been very kind to me in the coaches playbooks. So things I wish I knew when I first started trading. I started trading. Well, I'd been down on the floor in the wheat pit in the grain room for a while and clerking down there. And as the open outcry kind of transitioned to the screen trading, I had the option to, I had the opportunity, I should say, to trade somebody else's account on the screen while they were busy, doing the open outcry stuff. So I did a little bit of that, found some success doing that. And I think probably the biggest thing that got me was I came into trading very, very cocky. And I had found a little success trading somebody else's account. Now, 20 years old, summer going to my senior year of college, I had saved up a bunch of money and I started my own account and I was doing this full time. So I came in very cocky to the point where I'm a 20-year-old. 5 years from when I started, I thought I would already have made my first $1 million in the market. Unrealistic expectations that I was basing off, what I had seen from some of the other people that I had known in the industry. So being cocky in such a difficult competitive business was probably the worst thing I could have done. I got humbled pretty early on though, which was a really good thing. I have a long list of things and I'll share some of the things on this list, but I had been told, it's good to have a bias on the markets when you're trading. And that's true, but I think you have to have a bias, but also react to what you're seeing. So just because you have a long or short bias doesn't mean that you need to go long or short. You should have somewhat of a bias, but know that anything can happen. I didn't start off that way. I also didn't start off by recognizing all the price bar overlap, whether you're looking at a 5-minute chart or a daily chart. Markets go up, they come down, they go up, they come down. I kind of had the stance where I put this on and it's going to go, screaming in my direction and never look back. Well, that's a very rare occurrence. It does happen, but when you're doing this day to day to make a living, that's not something that you see all the time. I also never really had put together much of a serious business plan. I didn't know what I should be risking on a daily basis. I know that I had a really good first month trading, and then one day after having started, I wiped out 4 weeks of hard work and then some. It was a very demoralizing thing. It was a kick in the gut, and it was good that it happened because it was a learning experience. I've been very good at making mistakes, but I've been good about learning from them and not replicating them. So those are a couple things. I had heard from getting opinions from other people is a good thing in order to formulate your own opinion. But I had really passionately followed advice from people, and it wasn't bad advice, but I think I just took their advice for, the line or two that they said. And I remember at the time that I started, which was around like 07, 08, I had heard people say, a lot of people that I knew traded, they were trading calendar spreads in the grains, and they always liked being bear spread. I also had talked to people about markets fall quicker than they rise. So I kind of had like this short bias to these markets. And I started in a time when we watched crude oil go to $145 a barrel. The grains boomed. So I like had this stance that I wanted to be a seller and not a buyer. So I quickly learned that you had to play both sides, long and short. Really, anything can happen with these markets too. The market, you hear people say it's got to do this, it's going to do this. Well, that's BS. It doesn't have to do that. I remember getting smoked trading soybeans from the short side of things because we had such a favorable growing season, good rain, good sun. We had record large crops that year, crop production that year. So I was a short seller for a long period of time, almost on a daily basis, and I was losing money every day. I think I've shared this story before too. Meanwhile, what I missed was, that there was a huge appetite for demand for soybeans out of China. And it was, one of the main factors that contributed to a huge bull market in there. Another thing was, and I'm sorry if I'm getting kind of long here, I'll start to wrap things up.
Yeah, you could do one more here and then we'll leave Dan with something.
It's just good to know you're not short anymore.
Yeah. Well, I also, I was very enticed by the P&L swings and stuff like that as a college kid who might have been making $16 an hour at best to that time. Seeing the big swings during the day was something that really captivated me. And I was someone who, I'll admit, I traded my P&L early on, my P&L and my account balance, instead of what I saw was happening in the markets, which was a huge problem. I've got some other good ones, but
we'll loop around back to you. Okay. I like what you said, though. I think that there is, especially in like the equity indices, I feel like there's more glory and better stories from being right short than being right long, because you want to be the contrarian. You want to be, that's why they made the Big Short into a movie. You want to be the one that's right when everyone else is wrong, and you saw it the whole time. So I totally get that too. Dan, it's your time to shine.
Finally, I feel like I've been sitting here with all these ideas. No, when this topic came up, I started thinking about a ton of things, and my head was kind of all over the place. I'll have to agree with pretty much everything you guys said, except Mick. I've never been a soybeans trader, never really paid attention to China's demands on that. And I'll be honest with you, I don't plan on doing that one in my future because I'm going to stay away from the soybeans. I'll leave that one to you. But for me, I grew up in this industry and I had this glorified idea of what the opportunity creates. And so when I walked into this, I can tell you a story. When I was first starting and I was working for my father, I was going into the prop firm, and he looked at me and goes, "All right, we got to put together your contract. We got to get things figured out. We got to create some structure here." And he looks at me and he's like, "What's your expectation on how much money you're going to make this year?" And I'm thinking to myself, well, I know what my dad's done over the last 25, 30 years. I'll just take a fraction of that and things will be good. And I set a number to him, and he looked at me and, humbled me as any father should. And it was kind of a quick reality check of like, wait a second, this is not what you see on TV. This is not, Gordon Gekko coming into this. I really had that falsified notion. And that's really become one of the first things I try and teach anyone and talk to them when they get into this. You have to be realistic. You cannot come in with these glorified expectations of the money. And I'll be the first one to admit, I am 100% in trading for the money. I absolutely love the outcomes that come with it, but you have to create the blocker. When you sit down to trade, the thing I tell everyone, it's process over profits. You have to focus on the process first, or otherwise the profits will never come. If you start to focus on the process, hey, those profits are then going to be a byproduct of that. So that was that first step of like, I got to realize this. I have to recognize this idea. And then as I started thinking more about this topic, my mind's going crazy. I got millions of ideas. But the next one really came into the fact that this is not a job. This is not a 9 to 5. This is not a 5-day-a-week thing where you get to sign out at 5 o'clock and you're done, and you're gonna get that paycheck on the 1st and 15th of every month or every other Friday. That paycheck's not going to be there. This becomes your lifestyle. This is what we always said in the Marine Corps. It was kind of the difference with our branch and some of the other branches. It's not a job, it's a lifestyle. You have to work it all day long. You have to kind of live and breathe it. And if you're not willing to live and breathe trading, don't rely on it. Now you can do it as kind of a side thing and a little bit here and there to maybe look for some opportunity just to stay in tune to the markets. And that's totally okay. We go through phases like that. I do it myself where, I'll live and breathe it for 6 months, and then I'll take a month or 2 or 3 where it's like, I'm going to step back for a little bit. I'm going to stay in tune with the market. If I see an opportunity, I'm going to take it. But I'm not with that huge expectation. And the last thing I want to talk about, it really became, from my trading, I want to talk tactical here, something we can walk away with. And that was, do not trade for breakouts. Do not trade for the big moves. Look for the small opportunities inside. When I first got into things, I was looking for that market to test a high, look for the breakout, see if we can get the big rally or test the low, look for the break to the downside, get the big move. That's what I was looking for. And I was trying to lean into those trades. My winning trade percentage was terrible. I wasn't making money. I was struggling. And as soon as I kind of came to the reality of like, okay, I just need to get some winners. I know my breakout, looking at the breakout trade is not the opportunity for me. I need to look for rotation back inside. Once I started trading that rotation back inside, it was like that light went off and I started to recognize, okay, I can trade trending markets because, guys, I'm going to talk about channels. I can have my channel range bound. I can have it working higher. I can have it working lower, and I can start to find opportunity in trending markets. I can find opportunity in range bound markets. Once that started to happen, my trading changed. Everything changed, and I got comfortable and I got excited about taking the trades. And I knew I had a higher probability of every trade I was taking. And I was also avoiding those shakeouts when I knew I was in the right direction. If we're in a trend, once I started to kind of recognize where that pullback is going to really pull back to in a trend up market, once I found that and I started to recognize, oh, I'm managing my risk here. I'm not going to get shaken out on the pullback because I'm in on the pullback. I'm waiting for it to come back to a good opportunity point where I can then take that long and continue with the trend. Once I accepted that, I can honestly say that's where, as a trader, I matured. I found opportunity. I started to actually meet some of those expectations I had that first day when I talked to my dad about what I expected my salaries to be and my paychecks to fulfill. And that's where everything for me was a big deal. So I would say manage those expectations as it comes to money. You're not going to replace your salary on day 1, week 1, year 1. If you can stay scratch, great success. Like, let that be your success metric. After a year of trading and you're scratch, that is absolutely okay. And that's a good sign. Trading within those channels. And really, this has to be a lifestyle. You have to live and breathe this. You have to be thinking about it 24/7. And when you're not, step away.
A theme that's emerging here is Dan said managing expectations, but I'd say too, it seems everyone's talking about controlling unrealistic expectations to start. And that's probably the biggest one, is that I feel in my first couple of years on the job is that I had a number that I felt was my average each day, like what I would have to make each day to be like, that was a decent day. Was that number my average? No. And it was a constant loop back of me thinking, well, this is what I should be making. But what you should be making is exactly what you make. That's the truth of it. And if you don't have those expectations aligned, it's going to lead to frustration, tons of frustration, because if your expectations are too high, you're going to go 90% of your trading days, you're not going to be happy with the results. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to participate in anything where like 95% of the time I'm miserable doing it. If I had just been a little bit more like, okay, this is what I'm actually capable of at this point, and this is what I should be sort of aiming for, I think that would have led to me being, preventing the sort of burnout or the bad decisions chasing the money that I think harms so many people who are getting started with that. So, Mick, did you have a few others? I told you I would loop back, and I'm a man of my word, if nothing else.
Thanks for circling back. You've always been a man of your word, Jack. I think, and I almost wish I started out with this. So when you are going into trading, I think the best possible thing you could do for yourself when you do start trading is make sure that you have another source of income coming in, something that you can pay the bills with, something that you can treat yourself to, dinners, entertainment, anything like that. Not having that is going to put an enormous amount of pressure on you as a trader. I went through that when I started trading. I was like, this is it. I'm going to make money doing this. And then you go on and you're not making any money, or you're even losing any money. It hurts. It's scary. And it's frustrating too. And it also, worst of all, leads you to taking trades that you probably shouldn't be trading because you feel like you need to make money. So you're forcing trades that if you were more educated on the markets and, had a little bit more experience, you wouldn't be taking these trades. So I've spoken to a number of traders that have, left their jobs to go into trading, and, they don't have that income anymore. They find themselves having a rough couple weeks or a rough couple months or a rough year trading, and they're in a bad position. So if my biggest suggestion would be, manage your risk, keep your losses small, but make sure that you've got money coming in elsewhere so you don't need to trade. So you're only trading when you see an opportunity, and taking what you can get out of it. To Jack's point, he thought he needed to be making X amount in a day to be happy and hit his number. That isn't realistic. You can only make or lose. You can only make what the market gives you in a day. So saying I want to average $1,000 a day isn't realistic. But take pressure off yourself. This is hard enough. You don't need to have added pressure about wondering, am I going to be able to pay my phone bill? Can I pay my rent? Am I going to be going out to dinner or eating ramen noodles 3 times a day?
Well, we've buried the lead here because Mick, you hit on the most important one. And I think sometimes we forget, but this is probably the most important one. Dan and I were just we're making a new risk disclosure thing right now. If you remember one rule, it is do not, if you're started or if you've been there forever, do not trade actively with money that you cannot afford to lose. Even, make it more black and white than even what Mick said, is there are tons of areas where you should never, ever be trading with borrowed money. You should never be taking money out of retirement accounts, student loans. What were some of the other examples on there, Dan? We came up with a comprehensive list of if you have savings for education, this needs to be money that can go to zero and you will be like, I am fine. I am okay.
Yeah, we have a long list and we'll get it out soon, but it's, 401ks, student loans, right? The student use the money for the purpose you've borrowed it for, right? If it's to pay the mortgage, if it's to go to school, get that education. Don't tap into your 401k because you want to try this trading, things like that. Make sure it's cash. That I've always viewed it as once I put that cash in my trading account, that cash is gone. It's not, I have to live without it. And so that always has kept me in a position where it's like, number one, I don't want to withdraw too much because I want to keep this account alive and moving forward. And number two, if I lose this money, it's not going to change my house. It's not going to take my car. It's going to keep, I'm not going to change the way I'm eating, things like that. That's how you really want to approach it when you're putting money into these accounts. Make sure you have, my dad always said, if you don't have a nest egg for 8 months, that you could lose your trading accounts, not work at all, and you can't make it 8 months, you're doing something wrong. So keep that 8 months. That's how he always told me. 8 months, set aside and don't waste it.
Yeah, that's good advice around. Well, Hoag's been a while. Do you have anything else to add on this, or?
Sure. I asked some of the traders I was working with today what they wish they knew when they first started. One of them was asymmetry in trading. In other words, a positive reward over risk ratio is something that one of them said. One of them said entries and management. That to me says we didn't know that we needed a strategy or any kind of process. How emotions guide our decisions. One of the things we haven't really touched on is how important it is to know thyself when you get into trading. Another one was how dangerous early success in trading can be.
Bingo. Worst thing that can happen to you is to have a huge first day or something. That is bad news.
And another one was the importance of using stops. That can be also a costly lesson to learn.
Yeah, those are all great.
Yeah, those are great.
Well, I think we've more or less covered our bases here. I mean, we could talk about this for hours, but I think, the most important things to emerge is just have realistic expectations. Don't use money that you can't afford to lose, and do your homework. It's sort of that measure twice, cut once. Know your product, do your homework before you get in there and start doing it. Don't find out the hard way that you didn't know. If you go in there and you're not trading with stops because you didn't know about stops, learn from that and don't do it again. Like, it's simple as that. But otherwise, if you are on a mission to know yourself and learn more about your emotions and things like that, you'll probably put yourself in a lot better place to succeed. So take that, not trying to frighten people away from it, but those are the truth, man. So enjoy. So Dan, do you have a quote to take us home here?
I do. And Jack, I was going to use a quote I researched, but then I just like what you said. And with Memorial Day around the corner, I am going to use a Marine Corps thing. And it's one of the key leadership traits in the Marine Corps, and it's know yourself and seek self-improvement. I think that's one of the most important things in trading is understanding yourself, your emotions, and working on those. You're never going to, perfect it, but continue to work on it. So that's what I got.
Well, that's good stuff. So that's all for this week. We'll be back next week. I won't be here. I'll be in Ireland, Dan, but I think you guys can handle yourselves nicely. But in the meantime, yeah, will be, except for the flight with the baby, but I'll survive. So Hoag, take us home.
Sure. There's probably a million different things that traders would choose as the most important thing that they wish they knew when they were trading. And again, we didn't really touch too much on self-knowledge and how important it really is in finding your way in this. And, trading is difficult. Of course, it's difficult to get to know yourself as well. Sometimes we find things that we're not comfortable with, but it's so important to be able to take those barriers out of trading inside of our heads to get to the success outside of our heads. Don't give up. It's not easy, but the rewards can be tremendous, not only financially, but personally. So get out.